41-year-old Penang-born businessman Jho Low is arguably one of the world's most wanted fugitives, not only by Malaysia, but by authorities across the globe.
I like to plan my evenings and make sure that I always go to the best parties.
He stole billions from an entire country. Then he vanished.
Rewind to 2015, and nobody was looking for him yet. He just walked into a nightclub in Las Vegas and spent more money in one night than most people make in 10 years. Champagne, not bottles, cases, a guest list that included Paris Hilton, Leonardo DiCaprio, and half of the Billboard Hot 100. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't an athlete. He wasn't even technically rich. He held no government title, no board seat, no company you'd recognize. But here's the story behind the story. This fund didn't start as 1MDB. It started years earlier, as a small state fund for Terengganu. And according to sworn court testimony, including Najib Razak's own, the fund was the brainchild of two men, Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin, then Malaysia's king, and Jho Low himself. One witness testified Low sketched the concept out on a whiteboard in his own kitchen. He brought in Ambank to raise the money. He brought in Goldman Sachs. A former Goldman banker later testified under oath in a Brooklyn federal court that it was Low who approached them directly. And he brought in the fund's own CEO, who later admitted he trusted Low because Low already had the palace's backing. But even inside the palace, somebody was already asking questions. Leaked meeting minutes from June 2009 show a representative from Istana Negara, Malaysia's royal palace, directly demanding to know who Jho Low even was and warning that his name might be misused to invoke the king's own authority. Then, months later, Prime Minister Najib Razak's the government stepped in, took the fund national, and renamed it One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB. The man with no title had just helped build the very machine he'd later be accused of emptying. And according to U.S. Department of Justice filings, that's exactly what happened next. More than $4.5 billion gone. Roads that were never paved, hospitals that were never finished. A generation of Malaysians told there wasn't enough money, while, allegedly, that same fund helped bankroll a Hollywood blockbuster. This is the story of Jho Low, a man the U.S. government has called one of the central figures in the largest kleptocracy case it's ever pursued. And the strangest part isn't what he stole, it's that he built the very trap he'd later spring on his own country. If you're new here, this channel covers stories like this every week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. So who is this man really? Low Taek Jho, most people just call him Jho Low, grew up in Penang, the son of a moderately successful businessman. Comfortable, nothing extraordinary. At 13, he was sent to Harrow, one of the most elite boarding schools on earth. Future royalty, future finance ministers, future billionaires, sitting in the same classrooms. He wasn't the richest student there, wasn't the smartest either, but he had one skill worth more than both. He remembered people, and he connected people. By the time he reached Wharton, he'd already built a network spanning Middle Eastern royalty, Wall Street bankers, and political dynasties across Southeast Asia. If enough powerful people already believe you belong in the room, nobody bothers asking why you're actually there. Once the fund went national, Najib Razak chaired its advisory board personally. Jho Low, still holding no official title, became, investigators say, one of the people most deeply embedded in how its money actually moved. Here's where it should have raised alarms immediately. In 2012, 1MDB partnered with Goldman Sachs to raise roughly $6.5 billion through 3 bond offerings. Goldman's fee, around $600 million, an extraordinary rate for underwriting of that size. Some of that money, prosecutors allege, never reached its destination. Instead, it was funneled through a shell company built to be forgotten. Good Star Limited, a British Virgin Islands entity prosecutors say Jho Low effectively controlled, rerouted, layered, split into transfers through Switzerland, Singapore, Luxembourg. By the time it resurfaced, it didn't look like state capital anymore. It looked like personal wealth. Most embezzlement stories go quiet here. Someone buys a second house, maybe a boat. Jho Low did the opposite. He spent like he wanted to be noticed. A super yacht, the Equanimity, worth around $250 million. A private jet, a Picasso and a Monet, both later seized by U.S. authorities. Diamond jewelry gifted to model Miranda Kerr, $8.1 million worth, later returned in a settlement, no wrongdoing on her part. Then the twist that made this global. Prosecutors say money traced back to 1MDB helped finance Red Granite Pictures, co-founded by Reza Aziz, Najib's stepson. Their biggest release? The Wolf of Wall Street, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, a film about the seduction of dirty money, reportedly financed in part with dirty money. DiCaprio was never accused of wrongdoing. He returned gifts, including that Picasso, as part of a DOJ settlement. A movie about financial fraud had, allegedly, become fraud's own advertisement. And still, nobody had connected the dots. Every scheme this size eventually meets someone who won't look away. For 1MDB, that was Xavier Justo, a former employee at a 1MDB-linked Swiss company who left with internal financial records after a dispute over money he says he was owed. He brought them to journalist Claire Rucastle-Brown
in Malaysia,
who ran a small investigative site called Sarawak Report. Starting in 2015, she published the shell companies, the transfers, the names attached to them. The Wall Street Journal picked it up, evidence that hundreds of millions had moved from 1MDB straight into Najib Razak's personal accounts.
This resource grabbing from the people of that country, none of the benefit going back to the citizens
Najib's
of that
team
country.
called it a donation from a Saudi royal. Investigators called it something else. Justo, the whistleblower, was later arrested and convicted in Thailand. The men he exposed stayed free, but the story was out, and there was no putting it back. By 2016, the US DOJ launched what was, at the time, the largest action in its kleptocracy asset recovery history, seeking over $1.7 billion in assets. Singapore shut down 2 banks. Switzerland opened its own investigation. Malaysia, the fund's home turf, was, at the time, the hardest place to get answers, since the man overseeing it was still the country's sitting prime minister. Jho Low himself was gone. Hong Kong, then mainland China, reportedly under some form of unofficial protection. Then, nowhere anyone could confirm. Interpol issued a red notice. In 2019, the FBI charged him in absentia. In 2022, Malaysia issued a warrant, and a Kuwaiti court sentenced him, in absentia, to 10 years. To this day, nobody's officially confirmed where he is. Back home, the scandal did something financial scandals almost never do. It brought down a government. In 2018, Najib's coalition lost Malaysia's election for the first time in the country's 61 years of independence. Largely because of this, Najib was charged with dozens of counts. In 2022, Malaysia's highest court upheld his conviction on 7, and he began a 12-year sentence, later reduced. Reza Aziz was charged with money laundering. Those charges were dropped after he agreed to forfeit assets. Goldman Sachs in 2020 agreed to pay over $2.9 billion globally. At the time, the largest penalty the DOJ had ever handed a bank in a case like this. Billions in assets have been recovered: the yacht, the art, real estate in Beverly Hills in New York. But by most estimates, a huge share of the original $4.5 billion is still gone. Jho Low has never stood trial, never once publicly answered these allegations in a courtroom. Somewhere, investigators believe he's still alive, protected by the exact same skill that built his entire career. Not wealth, not power, just the ability to convince the right people for just long enough that he belonged in the room. Malaysia is still paying off the debt. The yacht's been sold. The Picasso was returned. The man himself is still missing.